Max Verstappen, the unstoppable force behind Red Bull's dominance in Formula One, might soon be driving for another team. Sounds impossible, right? But what if I told you that a deal is already in motion, and it's not with the team you'd expect? This shocking revelation could change the entire course of the sport, and trust me, you won't believe where he's rumored to be heading. For years, Verstappen has been the face of Red Bull, delivering unforgettable performances and solidifying his place in the history books. But now, behind the scenes, plans are being laid that could see him trading in his Red Bull for the silver arrows of Mercedes. Yes, you heard that right. The very team that has battled him on the track for years may soon become his new home. This isn't just speculation, it's a move that's been quietly taking shape and could send shockwaves through the entire Formula One world. What does this mean for Red Bull, for Mercedes, and for Max's legacy? Can Red Bull bounce back from losing its star driver, or is Mercedes about to become an unstoppable force once again? Stay tuned, because by the end of this video you'll not only know why this could happen, but also how it might reshape the future of the sport for years to come. Buckle up, because this is one of the biggest F1 stories to break in years, and it's about to get even more interesting. What happens next? You'll have to stick around to find out, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single second of it. Now, let's dive straight into the rumor that's been making waves across the paddock. According to inside sources, Max Verstappen's father, Jos, has already reached a secret understanding with Toto Wolff, the mastermind behind Mercedes' dominance. This agreement supposedly paves the way for Verstappen to switch teams when the 2026 Formula One season kicks off. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Mercedes isn't just sitting back and waiting, they're already setting the stage by shaking up their driver lineup for the coming seasons. Next year, Mercedes will see Andrea Kimi Antonelli, a young rising star, take over from none other than seven-time world champion Lewis Hamilton. Antonelli will team up with George Russell, but Toto Wolff has made it clear that Verstappen is still his dream driver for the future. Wolff's long-standing ambition to bring Verstappen into the Mercedes fold isn't a secret anymore. This move is more than just speculation, it's part of a grand strategy that Mercedes has been building behind the scenes. But what does all this mean for Red Bull and Verstappen? Despite having a contract with Red Bull that runs until 2028, the dynamics between Verstappen and the team have been growing tense, particularly between Jos Verstappen and Red Bull's team principal, Christian Horner. Over the past few races, the performance of the Red Bull car has visibly dropped, frustrating both Max and his father. This frustration came to a head as Max struggled to maintain his dominance on the track, winning fewer races as the season progressed. His early victories have been overshadowed by a tough streak, and the Dutchman now finds himself under pressure like never before. It's not just about performance, there's a lot more at stake. Red Bull's standing in the Constructors' Championship has taken a serious hit, with McLaren overtaking them for the first time since 2022. With big names leaving Red Bull, like design guru Adrian Newey and sports director Jonathan Wheatley, Verstappen's future at the team is anything but secure. Losing such key figures in the Red Bull camp has created a void that even Verstappen seems to feel. Now, rumors are swirling that Max might be tempted by offers elsewhere, especially with Mercedes making its moves for 2026. The recent shifts within Red Bull have been nothing short of seismic. The departure of Adrian Newey, who's widely regarded as one of the most brilliant minds in Formula One engineering, has dealt a serious blow to the team's competitive edge. Newey has reportedly been lured over to Aston Martin, which is quickly becoming a force to reckon with. For Verstappen, this is more than just losing an engineer, it's about losing the man who helped design the cars that took him to championship victories. Meanwhile, Jonathan Wheatley, Red Bull's sports director, is also set to leave, taking on a leadership role at Audi's F1 team. These changes are leaving Red Bull vulnerable at a time when they need stability the most. To make matters worse, Verstappen's longtime race engineer, Gianpiero Lambias, is being promoted within the team's ranks. While Lambias will still serve as Max's race engineer for the next year, his new responsibilities mean that he might not be able to dedicate as much attention to Verstappen in the seasons to come. Come 2026, Lambias is expected to step down from his engineering role altogether, which could create yet another gap in Verstappen's support system. It's becoming clear why Verstappen might be eyeing the exit, especially with Mercedes aggressively courting him. The question remains, will Max really take the plunge and leave Red Bull for Mercedes? And if he does, what would that mean for his career and legacy? As the 2026 season approaches, the stakes couldn't be higher, not just for Verstappen, but for all of Formula One. Adding more fuel to the fire, sources suggest that Verstappen's potential move to Mercedes is not just a random shift, there's a strategic reason behind it. With major regulation changes coming in 2026, including a switch to 50% electrification and fully sustainable fuels, Mercedes is positioning itself to take full advantage of the new rules. Many experts believe that Mercedes is already ahead of the curve in terms of development, just as they were when the hybrid era began in 2014. Back then, Mercedes dominated the sport, winning 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships, cementing their place at the top. Verstappen and his team are reportedly betting on a similar outcome once the 2026 regulations kick in. His father, Joas, and his manager, Raymond Vermeulen, are allegedly banking on Mercedes emerging as the dominant force in this new era, just as they did before. Red Bull, on the other hand, is taking a different path. By 2026, Red Bull will be using their own powertrain, while Honda will be moving to supply engines for Aston Martin, reuniting with Adrian Newey. Despite Honda's recent success with Red Bull, there are growing concerns about whether the company can keep pace with Mercedes and Ferrari when the new regulations take effect. Max's contract with Red Bull is supposed to keep him there for another 4 seasons, but insiders suggest there are escape clauses built into the deal. These clauses could allow Verstappen to leave Red Bull early should certain conditions be met. With Red Bull's performance under increasing scrutiny, it's possible that Verstappen could activate one of these clauses, paving the way for his move to Mercedes without any legal hurdles. At a recent Dutch Grand Prix, Red Bull's team principal, Christian Horner, tried to dismiss the swirling rumors about Verstappen's potential departure. He assured the media that as long as Red Bull could provide a competitive car, Verstappen would stay with the team. But his words did little to quiet the speculation. Horner acknowledged that Max's contract does have performance-related clauses, which could allow him to explore other options if Red Bull fails to meet expectations. And with the team's recent struggles, many are beginning to wonder if they can continue to deliver the kind of performance Verstappen needs to stay satisfied. Horner didn't mince words when he commented on Mercedes' own performance struggles. He remarked that while people talk about Mercedes being a threat in the future, their current form has been less than impressive. "I didn't see Toto's car performing that well at Zandvoort," Horner quipped, taking a subtle dig at Mercedes' recent results. But despite the outward confidence, there's no denying that Red Bull is facing challenges. The team has slipped to 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship, and their once dominant RB20 car is now struggling to keep up with the likes of McLaren and Ferrari. For Verstappen, the situation is complicated. He's a driver who thrives on winning, and while he's had a spectacular career with Red Bull, the possibility of moving to a team like Mercedes, where the future looks promising, might be too tempting to ignore. With the 2026 regulations on the horizon, every driver is thinking long-term. If Red Bull can't offer a car that's capable of winning championships in the new era, Verstappen might see no choice but to make a move. As for Mercedes, they've been carefully planning their next big move. When they promoted Andrea Kimi Antonelli to the F1 team, it wasn't just about filling Lewis Hamilton's seat. It was about preparing for a future where Mercedes could dominate once again, and Antonelli is a key part of that plan. But there's another layer to this strategy. Mercedes wants to bring in Verstappen as their marquee driver by 2026. Toto Wolff has never hidden his admiration for Max's skills, and the team's current roster seems to be temporary, with an eye on securing Verstappen for the long haul. George Russell, who is currently one of Mercedes' main drivers, could find himself in a precarious position if Max makes the switch. Former Mercedes champion Nico Rosberg even hinted at this during a recent interview on Sky F1. Rosberg mentioned that the 2025 season could turn into a showdown between Russell and Antonelli to determine who would partner with Verstappen in 2026. According to Rosberg, George isn't safe at all. Toto wants Max, and if Max becomes available, George will have to fight to keep his seat. This raises the stakes for Russell, who's already feeling the pressure. While Russell has proven to be a talented driver, going head-to-head with Verstappen for a spot at Mercedes could be a career-defining moment for him. Antonelli, though young and inexperienced, is seen as Mercedes' future star. The 2025 season could be a tense battle within the team, with each driver vying to prove they deserve to partner with Verstappen when the time comes. Now, Let's talk about what this could mean for Max Verstappen in 2026. If the rumors are true and Verstappen does move to Mercedes, the implications would be massive. Max is not just any driver, he's already cemented himself as one of the greatest of his generation, and pairing him with Mercedes, arguably the most successful team of the last decade, could create a combination too powerful for anyone else to challenge. With the new regulations focusing on sustainability and electrification, it's expected that the 2026 season will bring a significant shift in the competitive balance of Formula One. Mercedes, known for their meticulous preparation, is betting that they'll be able to dominate this new era, just as they did during the hybrid revolution. But it's not just Mercedes that has their eyes on the prize. Aston Martin, with the help of Adrian Newey and a renewed partnership with Honda, is preparing to challenge the established order. However, there are concerns over whether Honda, despite their recent success with Red Bull, can keep pace with Mercedes' advancements. After all, Honda had previously left Formula One at the height of Verstappen's success in 2021, which raises questions about their long-term commitment to staying competitive under the new regulations. This makes Mercedes' bid to attract Verstappen even more logical. By securing him early, they could strengthen their position at the top and ensure that they have the best driver on the grid for the next era of Formula One. The potential partnership between Verstappen and Mercedes is not just about winning, it's about long-term domination in a sport that's constantly evolving. The new rules, especially those surrounding the engine and chassis, will test every team's ability to innovate, and Mercedes seems to be preparing themselves for the ultimate comeback. On the other side of the garage, Red Bull will face an uphill battle if they want to keep Verstappen beyond 2026. Although Max is contracted to Red Bull until 2028, several insiders believe that his contract contains performance clauses which would allow him to leave the team early if they fail to remain competitive. This means that Red Bull's future may hang on whether they can continue to build cars capable of winning races and championships. Christian Horner has been vocal about the team's commitment to providing Verstappen with a competitive car, but the pressure is mounting. During the Dutch Grand Prix last month, Horner told reporters, "It's down to us to deliver. As long as we provide Max with a race-winning car, we know where we stand." However, this confidence is being tested. Red Bull's once dominant cars have started to show signs of weakness, and their rivals are closing the gap. McLaren, Ferrari, and even Aston Martin are making strides in performance, while Red Bull has struggled to maintain their early season form. The RB20 car, which once looked unbeatable, now seems to be lagging behind in development. For Verstappen, the decision to stay with Red Bull could come down to whether they can regain their competitive edge. If Red Bull continues to fall short, the allure of joining Mercedes, a team that's consistently proven they can bounce back and dominate, could be too strong to resist. And with the 2026 regulations looming, Verstappen's choice will likely define the next era of Formula One, not just for himself but for the entire grid. But what about Red Bull's response? Christian Horner and his team aren't the kind to sit idly by while their top driver contemplates a switch. Red Bull has been in this position before, where their dominance has been threatened, and they've shown time and time again that they can adapt. The team is already making significant changes behind the scenes, with personnel reshuffles and promotions aimed at securing their future in F1. For instance, Max's trusted race engineer, Gianpiero Lambias, has been promoted within Red Bull's hierarchy, but he will continue working closely with Verstappen for the next season. However, 2026 brings uncertainty. Lambias is expected to step away from his role as Verstappen's race engineer by that time, leaving Max without one of his most trusted advisors. This creates another potential reason for Verstappen to consider a switch to Mercedes, where he could enjoy stability in a team that's gearing up for the next major era in Formula One. For Max, it's not just about the car, it's about the entire ecosystem that supports him, from the engineers to the strategy team. With key figures leaving Red Bull, Verstappen might feel the need to look elsewhere to continue his streak of success. The loss of Adrian Newey, one of the greatest technical minds in F1 history, has already rocked the Red Bull camp. Newey's move to Aston Martin is more than just a personnel change, it represents a shift in the balance of power. If Aston Martin can provide a car as good as the one Red Bull has built in recent years, Verstappen's decision could become even more complicated. Aston Martin is positioning itself as a serious contender for the future. And with Newey at the helm, they might just be the dark horse of the 2026 season. Looking ahead, the 2026 regulations will completely reshape the Formula One landscape. The focus on sustainable fuel and electrification is set to level the playing field, giving teams a chance to rethink their strategies. Mercedes, having dominated during the previous regulation change in 2014, is once again putting in the work to ensure they are ahead of the curve. Many experts believe that Mercedes' foresight and planning will once again give them an edge, much like when they became the powerhouse team of the hybrid era. If Verstappen were to join them, he wouldn't just be jumping ship, he would be aligning himself with a team that's already preparing to dominate the future. It's no secret that Mercedes' technical team is already laying the groundwork for 2026. They are believed to be ahead in the development of their power unit, with many speculating that their new engine will be one of the most powerful on the grid. The team has also been closely monitoring advancements in aerodynamics and chassis design, ensuring that they'll be ready to hit the ground running when the new regulations come into play. Red Bull, on the other hand, will be relying on their own powertrains by 2026, a risky move considering that they've always depended on external suppliers like Honda in the past. While Honda will continue to supply engines to Aston Martin, there's uncertainty around whether the partnership will be as fruitful in the long term. Max has been vocal about wanting a competitive car, and Red Bull's ability to deliver on that promise in the new era will be crucial if they hope to retain him. With all these factors at play, the tension between Max Verstappen and Red Bull is palpable. Although Horner and the Red Bull team maintain that Verstappen is staying, it's clear that both sides are under pressure. Verstappen's future might hinge on how Red Bull performs in the next few seasons leading up to 2026. If the team can pull off a comeback and continue to provide Max with a championship-winning car, he might choose to stay. But with Mercedes making all the right moves to secure their future dominance, the pull toward Brackley might be too strong for Max to ignore. Even more intriguing is the possibility that Mercedes' young star, George Russell, could find himself in a tough spot if Verstappen joins the team. While Russell has performed admirably alongside Hamilton, the arrival of Verstappen would undoubtedly shake things up. As former Mercedes champion Nico Rosberg suggested, the 2025 season could become a shootout between Russell and Mercedes' new prodigy, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, to determine who would partner with Verstappen in 2026. This internal battle could leave Russell fighting for his career at Mercedes, especially if Verstappen steps into the picture. For now, all eyes are on Red Bull to see if they can hold on to their star driver. But the future is uncertain, and with so many variables in play, the 2026 season is shaping up to be one of the most dramatic in recent F1 history. As we approach the end of this dramatic build-up, it's important to recognize the emotional stakes for Verstappen. He's spent his entire Formula One career with Red Bull, growing from a young rookie into a world champion. The relationship between Max and Red Bull has been more than just professional, it's been personal. Christian Horner and Helmut Marko have nurtured Max's career from the very beginning, and Red Bull has built cars tailored to Max's aggressive driving style. This bond is something that Verstappen will undoubtedly weigh heavily when considering his future. Leaving a team that has invested so much in him would be a difficult choice, but it's clear that Verstappen is also someone who is fiercely competitive and unwilling to settle for anything less than the best. The performance clauses in his contract give him the flexibility to walk away if Red Bull can't deliver, and the team is well aware of that. Red Bull's management knows they need to keep Verstappen happy, not just in terms of financial compensation but also by giving him the tools he needs to win. The team's recent struggles have only added fuel to the fire, and the looming 2026 regulations are casting a long shadow over their future. The stakes have never been higher for Red Bull, and the next few seasons could determine whether they remain a dominant force in Formula One or fall behind their rivals. For Mercedes, the opportunity to sign Verstappen represents more than just acquiring another top driver. It's about cementing their place at the top for the next era of Formula One. Toto Wolff has built a reputation as a master strategist, always thinking several steps ahead of the competition. Bringing in Verstappen would not only strengthen their driver lineup but also send a message to the rest of the grid: Mercedes is here to win, no matter what it takes. And with new technical regulations on the horizon, this move could be the key to unlocking yet another period of Mercedes dominance. But what about Max himself? As a driver who has already achieved so much at a young age, Verstappen is clearly thinking long-term. He's not just looking for a competitive car in 2025 or 2025 or 2026, he's thinking about his legacy. Will he be remembered as a Red Bull legend, or will he join the ranks of drivers who have conquered with multiple teams, much like his rival Lewis Hamilton? Hamilton's move to Mercedes back in 2013 was seen as a gamble at the time, but it paid off in spectacular fashion. Now Verstappen faces a similar crossroads. He could stay with Red Bull and hope that they continue to give him the machinery to win, or he could take a bold step and join Mercedes, a team that is already laying the groundwork for future success. In recent interviews, Verstappen has hinted at the possibility of trying something new in the future. While he remains focused on winning with Red Bull for now, there's a sense that he's keeping his options open. The new technical regulations coming in 2026 are a major factor in his decision-making process. These regulations will mark the beginning of a new era in Formula One, and Verstappen knows that aligning himself with the right team during this transition could be the key to adding even more championships to his already impressive resume. For now, all eyes are on the next few races. Verstappen's immediate focus is on closing out the current season strong, but behind the scenes, the discussions about his future are intensifying. Will Red Bull be able to turn things around and convince Max to stay, or will Mercedes make an offer that's too good to refuse? As the F1 world watches and waits, one thing is clear: wherever Max Verstappen goes, he'll be aiming for nothing less than greatness.